Now, first of all, why take the initiative? Well, think about it. One thing about being Jehovah's Witnesses is that we're never off duty. We never stop being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. So it isn't just that when we're out in formal preaching work with congregation group, we are one of Jehovah's Witnesses all the time. There's no such thing as being off duty when we're one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I see you're a fan of Scotch. Do you know anything about Irish whiskey?
Yeah, not a lot. My wife likes it.
Yeah.
Jameson's always
Yeah.
Popular.
I usually get Bushnells, but I don't know anything about these newer ones.
Yeah, the Jameson's been good long time.
Yeah.
This one I don't know, but hey, that's nice to just test them out, taste them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been to Scotland
All right.
a number of times, so I just
Well, thank you.
Scottish and Irish, so I'm not prejudiced. A lot of the Irish ones will say,
Yeah.
you got to try our stuff,
Yeah. I know I've had the green spot. That's very nice.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll just go with
Hard.
another bottle of JMO.
You can't go wrong with it. My wife really likes that.
Hey, have a good one.
Yep. Sometimes you get feeling where, maybe I could witness to this person, take the initiative, but I just don't feel like it. I'm tired. Not with Jesus. See, to imitate Jesus, even in the case that you're tired, you're thinking of others, and you want to take the opportunity to start a conversation. That's the initial goal.
We've been watching governing body member Anthony Morris III, who was more than likely on his third whiskey of the morning when giving this talk. A talk with the title, Be Ready to Share the Good News of Peace, Take the Initiative. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses need to do, apparently, when they're out and about, in Bottle King, in their local liquor store. Whatever it is they're doing, they're never off duty. Apparently, they always need to be ready to preach. And I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist editing in the Bottlegate footage. Thumbnail to the full video here, if Tibor is gracious. Because that was obviously the first thing that sprang to mind when I was watching this part of the convention. How can Tony Morris be lecturing Jehovah's Witnesses on seizing every opportunity when he didn't do that when getting into a conversation in a liquor store? To be fair to Tony, I have to try to see things from his point of view. I don't think it was just tiredness. I think the guy who was speaking to him and covertly filming him, I think the guy who was speaking to him was probably a bit nervous, and there were one or two instances where he seemed to go to cut short the conversation. Again, probably nerves were getting the better of the guy behind the camera, and he was maybe a little bit out of his depth or feeling like he needed to kind of extract himself from this situation for whatever reason. I can kind of relate, to be honest, because when you know who these people are, and let's say your entire life revolves around what their teachings are, even if you have a low opinion of them intellectually and for myriad other reasons, you can still feel intimidated. So I think the guy behind the camera was a bit intimidated and didn't make it easy for Tony Morris to go into a presentation, to use a sample conversation. I think Tony Morris probably would have gone there, probably would have tried to say something if the conversation looked like it might go in that direction. even though he was in entirely the wrong setting to be trying to recruit someone into Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, can you imagine how that would look in a future experience? Yes, I met Brother Morris. Brother Morris was the first person who ever preached to me. Oh, really? And, where did you meet him? I met him at Bottle King in New Jersey, and his trolley was brimming with very expensive Macallan's whiskey. And I got into a conversation with him, and he used a sample conversation on me. And the next thing I knew, I was studying. So I can't see how that would have played out. And clearly the guy having the conversation wasn't a total newbie anyway. So I'm trying to cut Tony as much slack as possible. But I think that when you give talks at conventions in front of millions of Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to have a degree of freeness of speech. And this is one of those areas in which Tony Morris doesn't really have freeness of speech, in my opinion, because if it's true that Jehovah's Witnesses are never off duty and they should always engineer opportunities to preach, why didn't Tony try harder in Bottle King with someone he assumed to be just a normal worldly person, someone who needed the Jehovah's Witness good news?
Next, we have a video here. Now, as you watch the following video, notice how a sister finds an effective way to witness informally.
They seemed nice.
I knew what Yuri was thinking.
I wanted to start a conversation, but I didn't want to bother them either. And when an opportunity came, I just froze. Then I was in a rush to give a witness. It felt forced. It helped to hear that we'd all been there. Our past experiences were similar. Whenever we didn't put pressure on ourselves and just looked for something in common to talk about, we could usually find a moment when we could say something about the Bible. She was curious why we were dressed up. Turns out that she'd never talked to Jehovah's Witnesses before.
So how we appreciated how she took the initiative. Of course, you see the contrast there that at one point she froze. So it is stressful, there's no doubt about it. We're only human. But then she rushed into things, running after her with the track. See, give us some thought, try to have the conversation, then let the Spirit move it, and that would be imitating Jesus. Then it can move into getting into the spiritual purpose of initiating the conversation. So, good example. Give it a try, brothers and sisters, and let Jehovah bless your efforts.
Yes, why not give it a try? Next time you're at the restaurant, badger people at the next table over their religious beliefs. And use the fact that they're sat at the adjacent table to try to change their religion. What's the worst that could happen? This is the level of control. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you don't even get to go to the restaurant and just enjoy yourself. How can you really enjoy yourself at the restaurant if you're looking at other tables and trying to analyze, trying to figure out whether there's a preaching opportunity with the people sat around you at the restaurant? It's frankly hypocritical of Tony Morris, not just with the whole Bottlegate thing. It's hypocritical of him to be making Jehovah's Witnesses jump through hoops in this way, because I'd like to see him do that at a restaurant. I'd like to see him bother people at the next restaurant table. If he's really expecting that level of commitment, that level of fanaticism from Jehovah's Witnesses, why doesn't he give an example of him doing that himself? He can't, because in my opinion, the preaching work is beneath him. I can't prove that he doesn't do any preaching work, but there are a few telltale remarks coming up later on in his talk that seem to indicate that preaching is something he used to do rather than being something that he is still involved in. In any case, what does this say, again, about the Jehovah's Witness religion if there's so much expectation placed on the shoulders of ordinary worshippers? You can't just go to a restaurant. You can't just sit there and say your little prayer quietly, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses have to do, by the way. You could, I suppose, say it out loud. I'm sure there are some Jehovah's Witnesses who will say it out loud. But typically, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you do like a little sneaky prayer. And you make it as short as possible, you know, rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub sort of situation. But you can't just go and enjoy a meal at the restaurant. Everything, apparently, has to be an opportunity to preach.